Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Astrology for Embracing Cycles of Life and Death, Ancient Cosmic Wisdom for Living Soulfully in a Death-Averse World. My name is Stephen Dyna. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network. And one of the things we've been seeing in recent years is a whole movement to really come into a deeper relationship with death, not as something to be feared, but as a portal to the deeper dimensions of ourself and life. And we're going to get to explore a unique angle on that from the astrological side of things today, and how embracing these cycles of life and death can really open a whole different way of being in the world. So we're going to get to explore with a true pioneer in this arena. Her name is Sue Brayne. Has a master's degree. She's an astrologer, author, TEDx speaker, and host of Celebrating Astrology channel. So Sue, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Well, it's such a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, we're excited, and I also want to let everyone know up front that we're going to have a brand new course with Sue called The Astrology of Life and Death that we'll share more about in the second part of the hour. So more to come if you get inspired today. So Sue, I would love to begin our time together with a bit about your journey into not just astrology, but particularly this astrology that focuses on the cycle of life and death and why that became such a focal point for you.
Yeah, well, it actually all happened because I survived a light aircraft crash. I was about 37 at the time and I was living a very hedonistic lifestyle in London. I had no idea who I was, but I was kind of just out there pretending that I did. And I was, it was a lovely August evening, and we were flying about 1,500 feet up. The plane was being piloted by a friend, and the engine coughed, and the propeller stopped going round, and we started to fall out of the sky. And we were just coming in so low that we kind of hit a line of trees that were just protecting a field that we were trying to get into. And so we basically the plane hit the top of the trees and we kind of spun around and we just belly flopped with a massive thud into this field. And I just remember shards of glass just pouring into my flat, and the kind of the plane crumpling. You know, they're not very robust, those planes. And my friend, who's the pilot, just saying, get out, the plane's going to blow up." And it was like, oh my God. And just throwing myself out onto the ground. And I mean, luckily the plane didn't blow up. And for whatever reason, neither he nor I were physically hurt. But sitting beside the plane, this sentence fell into my head. It was just like a postman posting a letter into my brain. And the sentence said, "Your life is a sham." And that was like, oh my God. And I just kind of felt like, the feeling that came to me that if I didn't get my act together, it would have been better to have died in the crash. That's how profound it was. And it set me on this journey to understand who I was and what the reason of my life was, because I hadn't found it before then. That's absolutely for sure. So I just suddenly thought, I have to get myself well. I have to find the core of who I am. And it set me on this journey that I'm still on. You know, I'm now 72, so I've been on this for a very, very long time. But the first teachers that I had was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was one of the pioneers in with working with people who are dying and with end of life. And I went and trained as a life, death, and transition facilitator with her organization, actually in America. I had no idea what I was doing, but what it did for me was kind of open up to really looking at life differently. Her teachings were very much about, you have to face your fear before you can help anyone else. You have to be the wounded healer. You have to go through that process. So that was a long, long process for me to really even admit there was anything wrong, really. I mean, I knew intellectually, but found it really hard to walk into my heart. So that was a hugely impactful training program. And then that sort of, I mean, a long journey of not a stone unturned, you know. I wanted, I was doing shamanic healing and gongs and oh my God, I mean, so much stuff. And then that kind of led up to another message eventually that said, you need to go and do an MA in the rhetoric and rituals of death. And I'd never been to university. I'd rejected anything to do with learning when I was at school. I was actually sort of vaguely regarded as retarded. And I was like, well, university, that's ridiculous. And just so happened, down the road from where I was living, where I was renting a little house, was a university in Winchester called King Alfred's. And by chance, they were doing an MA in the rhetoric and rituals of death. And I went to see the professors and I said, I don't have a first degree. And they went, oh, but you're a mature student. You've written a couple of books. Absolutely fine. Come and join us. And that was the start of my academic, sort of passionate wanting to really look at the whole process of death and dying. And that led me to meet Dr. Peter Fenwick, who is a neuropsychiatrist. And I became his honorary researcher into the first end of life study into what happens to consciousness as we die. It was just incredible experience to go and do that. And we wrote about 6, 7 academic papers which were peer reviewed and published. Then I wrote a book called The D Word, Talking About Dying, and that just kind of opened everything up. Then I trained as a psychotherapist, as a trauma psychotherapist. And then from there, I started running death cafes, which were enable people to come and talk about end of life, death and dying in any way they want to. And I did that for a long time. So everything has led to that moment. And then another message came saying, go and consolidate all your knowledge in astrology. Because I'd been fascinated by astrology for as long, you know, as part of my healing journey, I'd looked into that as well, obviously. And I thought, all right. So I signed up with the Faculty of Astrological Studies and I gained a diploma. And they kind of say the rest is history because suddenly I realized that astrology, I could bring astrology and my understanding of mortality together and see what's come out of that. And here I am.
What a truly fascinating life journey and a very abrupt to wake up to it. So the plane crash. I kind of want to just curious, what was the astrology for that day with the plane crash in terms of
Well,
indicating you?
yeah, there was Pluto.
It was a Pluto moment.
There was Pluto going, yeah, doing some stuff. Yeah, yeah. But it wasn't just that, actually. It was during the sort of the first half of my very intense healing journey, I had an incredibly profound mystical experience where I know this sounds not nuts, but I'm sure people listening to this will have had the same kind of experience. But I was sitting on a train, minding my own business, looking out of the very grimy window, and suddenly it felt like the curtains in my forehead parted, and I was floating up. Everything disappeared. I floated up. I knew I was 76. I had no question about that. And I felt a presence beside me. And I was just thinking, well, where am I? But I suddenly felt this incredible love. And I realized it was the love of the universe. And I kind of looked down. It was at my left hand side, and this stream of yellow. It was kind of like a yellow color. It's got a stream of yellow color. And I knew it contained the story of my life. And I knew I could dive into that yellow color and swim around and have a look. And it wasn't frightening at all, but it was like, oh, this is, I wouldn't mind doing that. And then this presence, this beautiful presence, just telepathically communicated to me. Do you know what? Life is only an experience, but it's what you make of the experience that matters. And I was like, oh my God, of course, of course. And then boom, the curtains in my forehead closed and I was back on the train and
Wow.
going, what the hell was that? And I still, even just talking to you now, years later, I still mourn for that love because you don't find it here.
Hmm. Fascinating story.
So,
Well, let's dive a little deeper into the astrology aspect
oh,
of this. And so you say that astrology became this larger holding container for all the work around death.
yeah.
What is it that's sort of about astrology and the specific understanding of a chart and planetary
Mhm.
influences that really help
Yeah.
create a deeper context of understanding our own cycles of life and death?
Yeah. Well, I think the astrology is so multi-dimensional. I think that's what I've really learnt about it. It's endless rabbit holes to go down. But just sort of to sort of strip it right back. I mean, your sun sign is the core of who you are. And according to the ancient teachings, which I'm happy to go into, it really represents the divine spark. And I really believe, and having had the experiences that I've had, that there is part of me, there is this part of me that knows where I've come from, that knows where home is. There is this divine spark. This doesn't mean to say I'm God, because I'm not, but I feel like I have this very strong connection with something far greater than me. And at the same time, I feel I have this soul. I think that's the right word. I think that's we have to have use words to make sense of what we feel. And I love Thomas More's teachings because he says that we have this divine spark, which is this kind of yearning to go home to our true home. But we also have the soul's journey, and the soul is deeply attached to being here because it wants to learn. And so for me, life is a bit like walking this tightrope between this divine spark and the soul, my soul's journey. And it's a tension that I live with. And I'm sure people who are listening to this will identify with that. And for me, astrology and looking at my chart, I've learned so much more about myself since I became an astrologer. But it sort of enables me to have a language. It gives me a language, and the language is it's about, the archetypes of the planets, what they're saying to us, and the archetypes of what the houses mean, and the planet being in a house, and then we've got the aspects that make the whole thing come alive. And I'm just absolutely fascinated by that. And being an astrologer, God, I'm never in awe, never not in awe when I do a chart and I haven't met the client. I have no idea who they are, but their chart tells me. And they turn up, always on Zoom, and they just go, how do you know that? That's not me, it's here. But what fascinates me is, how does a piece of paper with a round circle on it and 12 houses and some glyphs and, planetary glyphs, how does that turn into somebody's life story?
Hmm.
I don't know.
It
It's
is a great
very
question. I
magical.
mean, yeah, we could go deeper into the metaphysical understanding of that. And so, why do you? I guess where I see it is it's we're sort of like there's like these swirling influences, and we choose to incarnate at certain times because those influences are auspicious for our soul intentions.
Oh, for
How
sure.
I see it. I'm curious, what other dimensions do you see in that?
Well, I'm still working with it because I'm so fascinated about how the imprint happens. Because at the time of birth, there obviously is a planetary imprint because our charts are that. It's a snapshot of the moment that we're born. So, but how does that imprint happen? How does this, how does it just come alive? How does it hold the story of who you are? And it does. And it not doesn't just do that. It isn't just about your personality. It enables us all to experience and explore our soul's journey, where we've come from and where we're going. I mean, I'm going to get technical here. That's called the nodal axis. And our ascendant, which is the point of our birth, the time of our birth, and that marks where the constellation that's rising at the time of our birth sets our ascendant, according to evolutionary astrologers, it's that's the point of incarnation. And the ancient teachings are that we incarnate through the cross of matter, and we incarnate it into through the cross of matter into the four elements: earth, air, fire, and water, which enables us to take physical form. And then at the end of our life, we die through the cross of spirit. And then we either ascend if we've got the plot, or we have to come back, keep on coming back to do whatever work that we need to do to understand that we are this divine spark. And it's just everybody's chart says it. It just does. And it's just miraculous.
So is it the chart is showing some of the deeper themes that you need to work through in
Yeah.
order to go through the ascension of death, or is it you can got to pinpoint specific times and like, oh, this is when you're going to die?
Oh,
Does that show up?
okay. Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? I personally will not foretell them anybody's death. I just don't. I've seen it in somebody's chart, and I don't say I don't go there. Even, I mean, if they actually ask, am I when am I going to die? I'll just say I can't tell you that. There is there might be an aspect coming, but that does not mean to say that you're going to die at that point. There's been some very interesting research looking at the Mercury's relationship, particularly with the South Node. That's Judith Hill's work. Often makes the South Node is our it's what we carry in with us, but it's also our exit point. So she's done quite a lot of research into that and looking at Mercury's aspect. Mercury is the psychopomp. It guides the souls across through the threshold to the other side. Sorry, my cat's meowing beside me. She's come to join the
So
conversation.
when you want to understand somebody's death relationship with death, you're looking at Mercury and how that moves through the chart.
Can do, can do. I mean, the thing is, astrology is nuanced. It isn't one thing or another. It's never black and white. There's lots of different connotations, and it could be Mercury doing that, but also there may be Pluto a Pluto transit involved, or if it's a very sudden ending, that's Uranus, shocks and surprises. But it doesn't necessarily say somebody's going to die, but something might abruptly come to an end. And it depends again which house it sort of manifests in. So it's very nuanced,
Hmm.
and you kind of get a feeling for what's going on. But I do trust the archetypal energy of all the planets. And if Pluto is very prominent in somebody's chart, it's very evident that they are facing a profound transformation of some form.
Hmm.
If Uranus is going over somebody's ascendant, you're kind of guaranteed there's going to be a major change in their life,
Hmm.
something radical, something really different. And some people who have Uranus going over their ascendant, for example, might suddenly, going from a very staid person, might decide they want to become a punk rocker. It's got that kind of vibe to it. It's quite shocking. So it depends on the archetype. It depends on the relationship these archetypes are having with each other. So that's what I love about astrology. It just never stops. It's a gift that never stops giving. I know that's a cliche, but it's true.
Well, so I'd love to dive a little bit more into some of the specifics you're looking for. So let's talk about the entry point. So obviously the birth chart is very central.
Yeah.
What do you see in the birth chart in terms of just relationship with death? What are you looking for, like in terms of that larger cycle?
Well, I don't look for it. As I said, I don't look for it, but I think it's probably better to look at sort of beginnings and endings. So astrology is all about cycles, and the cycles happen because the birth chart at the moment of our birth is set. It's the snapshot of our life. But obviously, the planets are continuing to move. We call them transiting. They continue to move around our chart and make aspects to them. So, for instance, I'll say, so let's say everyone has what we call a Saturn return at the age of 29. It's universal. That's what happens because Saturn takes around about 29 years to travel around your chart. Now, 29, at 29, if you anyone who's going through a Saturn return at the moment, or anybody who's been through a Saturn return, just think about what happened or what might be happening because Saturn invites us to grow up. So my Saturn return, my first Saturn return, my marriage broke up. It just didn't work anymore. And that was my Saturn return because it just felt like that wasn't for me. So, Stephen, what happened for you around about 29?
There was a 27, was the end of my first marriage, and so it kind of led into a period
Yeah.
between marriages and then eventually a second marriage.
Yeah, yeah. There's always something that marks it. It's very rare that it's not marked by something quite profound like that, or a questioning of actually, who am I? I'm going into my 30s now. How am I going to grow up? What
Hmm.
does that mean for me? And if you're on a wrong course, Saturn's about karma, it will kind of lift you up and just go, you're not meant to be there, you're meant to be here.
Hmm.
So I've been through two Saturn returns because I'm as old as I am. And the second Saturn return happens around about 58, 59, 60. Mine was late, mine was 60. And I had a hugely impactful experience then as well. Now, a lot of people don't. They may have a theme that comes back for them around about that age, but for me, it's really set me on my journey to do what I do now. It was hugely impactful.
Hmm. Fascinating. And so you had mentioned earlier about houses as well. What are some of the things you want to look for in terms of houses, in terms of understanding our relationship with the cycles of life and death?
Okay, so all the houses, there's 12 houses that make up the zodiac, and each house has carries a theme. So the first house is very much about you. The second house is all about self-worth and value and what does value mean to me, and so on. So the houses that I always look for are the water houses, and they're the fourth house, the eighth house, and the 12th house. And the fourth house is about your roots, your family, your lineage. It's got that kind of deep, very deep energetic feel to it. It's where do I belong? But it's also known as the house where we're most unconscious. And it's often the house also known as the house of endings. So, and it's ruled by it's gone. It's ruled by Cancer, which is to do with the moon. So again, it's all to do with the cycles of life. The eighth house is a really interesting house. It's ruled by Scorpio, and Scorpio is all about transformation. It's so your eighth house is where you meet yourself, where you meet your fears, your those parts of yourself that you want to transform or you're forced to transform. And Pluto and Mars rule the eighth house, and so Mars is to do with personal survival, and Pluto is to do with collective survival. So the eighth house is very much linked to do with survival, and it's also linked to do with sex and other people's resources. So it's got a very kind of nuanced meanings to it, but it's all about sort of transforming the sort of the deeper aspects of how we relate to other people, how we relate to other people's resources, how we are sexually, and this sense of survival and deep psychological understanding of who we are and facing the fears that we need to address so that we can actually die at peace. That's, I think, a lot to do with the eighth house. And then the other water house is the 12th house, which is the lovely house of Pisces. And Pisces is the mystic. So the 12th house is to do with sort of merging into the collective. It's about They always say astrologers always describe Pisces as the mystic, the poet, and the addict. So there's again a sort of a nuance here because Pisces is very it's water, it's the ocean, it swims against each other. So there is this sort of very strong, powerful, tidal water element going on in the 12th house. And the 12th house is often, I look at it like this. It's like the legacy, the ancestral legacy. And often with people who've got, let's say, Pluto in the 12th house, there can be a lot of trauma in the family heritage. And the person's chart, they'll often say, I know I've come here to deal with this family trauma. I just had a client a couple of days ago with this very thing, and she just felt, I feel I've come here to do that. And I said, oh, do you feel like you're a lineage breaker? That's your job? She said, absolutely. And that's very much Pluto in the 12th house. If you've got Neptune in the 12th house, which rules Pisces, you can actually almost, because Neptune's very nebulous, you can often feel so attuned to the divine, to what you understand God to be, to the collective, that you actually find it really difficult to have any form of identity in the real world because you just want to escape. So I look at the 12th house very much as carrying our ancestral story. What needs to be done? What needs to be dealt with? What needs to be addressed?
Great overview, and it's clear you can go into a lot of specific detail in each of these areas. Well, I know you want to do lead us in a bit of an experiential embodiment of
Yes.
some of what you've been teaching, and because particularly with this journey of being an infinite divine spark. And so, why don't we take some time to do that now, and
Yeah.
then we can reconnect on the other side.
Yeah. Okay. So it'll be around about between 7 and 10 minutes, but I'll bring you out. So just everyone just settle into your seats. Just you can be, if you want to lie down, whatever works for you. And if you're okay and comfortable with this, just close your eyes and just take 3 slow breaths. And within each exhale, just let your body soften and release any tension. You might want to lift your shoulders up and just drop them. That can be really helpful. Make sure that you can feel either you're sitting in the chair, you can feel that, your feet on the floor, or you're leaning on cushions or whatever it is for you, just to remind you that you're safe, you're supported, and you're held in this moment. And just take another breath and just sink into who you are. Now just bring your attention to the center of your chest. This is your heart space. And just imagine your breath moving gently in and out of your heart. And with every inhale, you gather light. And with every exhale, you radiate the light gently into your body. Just enter that rhythm, that gentle flow of breathing in, gathering light, and then breathing out and radiating out that light into your body. Now picture a small spark of golden light at the very center of your being. And just see it glowing softly. It's timeless and eternal. And this spark has always been with you. Before you were born, during this lifetime, and it will travel with you beyond your death. And with each breath, notice the spark growing brighter, expanding, and filling your whole body with this glorious, radiant, divine light. Now imagine this spark choosing to shine here on earth, in your body, in this lifetime. It descended into form, open to learning and evolving. It's also carrying wisdom, love, and a dark desire for purpose. Now imagine your spark being drawn to a particular time of year, a season whose qualities deeply resonate with your soul's purpose. And in that moment, your soul chose to become the astrological sun sign that best expresses your essence and your purpose in this lifetime. And your sun sign became the doorway through which you shine this wonderful light. It's how you express yourself. It is the core of who you are. And just feel a moment of gratitude for the courage of your soul that you agreed to incarnate, to shine your light into a world that sometimes forgets its own light. Just rest in knowing I am here for a reason and my light matters. Now imagine this light radiating out beyond your body. It fills the space around you and the room and your community and even further, rippling out across the world. Each person you meet is touched by this radiance, not because you force it, because it naturally shines through you. This is the core of who you are. So let this light connect with the lights in others, creating a web of divine sparks across the planet, holding the awareness I am part of a living, sentient, conscious universe, and my soul's light contributes to the unfolding of life. Just see yourself as holding the light, especially in these very difficult and chaotic times that we're all living through. But your light is here, joining with other people's who are also shining their light. And this creates hope.
Beautiful.
Just
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that restoration of hope and the unique divine spark that we are. I wonder, building on that, as we've sort of claimed that essence of the divine spark, how do then you see this astrological sign sort of helping us to enhance the vision of that divine spark and understanding more about how it express?
Well, I'd say to anyone, and I say this to clients as well, go and read up about your sun sign. Find out about yourself. Find out about what you're carrying, what the archetype of who you are. I'm an Aquarian, and I'm still learning about what it's like to be an Aquarian. But I'm really proud to be an Aquarian. I wasn't, because when I was younger, I didn't know the sort of how to use myself well. So I brought out the more negative parts of the Aquarian, which was highly rebellious. So you need to learn about, the light and the dark, and all those nuances that make you who you are, and how you're drawn to certain how to be in the world. For instance, people who are cancer signs are, they're natural nurturers, they're natural mothers. That's what they're here to do. They're here to nurture the planet. um, uh, um, uh, Capricorns are here to kind of bring the quality of ambition into the world, to create something, to be possibly CEOs of companies, but they want to climb that mountain to create what they need to create. So and take responsibility. They're very,
I happen to be a Capricorn.
you see, there you go. Look, he's the living embodiment of a Capricorn. Well, thankfully, you've used it really well, rather than being the CEO of I don't know, yeah, electricity or gas company,
I
or
get the
whatever.
point. Yeah.
You got my drift. Yeah,
Yes.
that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
So in many
Yeah,
ways, it's like our astrological sign is almost like the cloak that we put our
yeah. But it
around
leads
our
you.
divine spark, and then where we're going to express that.
Yes. But it leads you. It leads you forward. It takes you forward. It gives you a kind of purpose. So just check out what your purpose is, whatever sun sign that you are.
Nice.
And then it'll be affected by the things in your chart, but that's the core. That's how you're going to shine your light. And where it is in your chart is where it shines its light. So my sun is in my third house of communication. So, that's how I shine my light.
Nice.
That's what I want to do. I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to be a CEO of a company. I want to communicate.
That's great. Well, I know we said we would also go into some interesting other ancient root systems too to understand the astrological
Yeah.
mapping. So let's talk a little bit about Gnosticism and Hermetic philosophy and how that gives a deeper context for our understanding our chart and our soul's evolution.
I just want to say a rider here. This is the problem with astrology. Once she calls you, if she does, you're lost, because you end up just reading about all of this incredible things, and doors open here and other rabbit holes open there. And I've just been very called into studying Hermeticism and Gnosticism, and that actually further back, that's Plato, because he was very one of the well, I mean, he was one of the great teachers ever, really. I'm not going to go into that because we'll go down another rabbit hole. But I just feel like Plato really honored the passage of the soul. He was really into that. He was really into the concept of reincarnation, that life is here for a purpose, and that suffering is here because we have to grow and learn from it. So he was really into that. There were arguments against it, but that's where he was coming from. And I think I'm a Plato girl, really, at heart. And his teachings very much influenced, first of all, the Hermetic teachings. And the Hermetic teachings are associated with a wonderful character called Hermes Trismegistus. And he was this, he is said to be a sort of mythological figure, half of Thoth, the Egyptian god of magic, and also Hermes, the Greek god of the messenger of the gods. But these two mythological archetypes created great wisdom. And with the Hermetic teachings, it is this understanding that we come from a divine spark. I'm not going to go into the whole mythology because it'll just take too long. But anyway, we travel down the sort of search for, I need to know what all of this is about. We travel down the planetary hierarchy, picking up planetary energies as we go. We incarnate through the cross of matter, and we are here we sort of go through the veil of forgetting. That's really important, and the job is to remember that we are this divine spark, and therefore we can actually then, as we go through our death process, the idea is to reascend and join the divine element. The thing is, we get so embroiled with being in this material world that we forget. And so we have to keep coming back. I mean, this is a real broad overview, by the way.
Hmm.
We have to keep coming back until we remember, and that might take lifetimes. So, and I'm not, as I said, I'm not going to go into all of it because it would just take it. Just
Uh-huh.
I'm doing a whole session on
I know we're covering a lot in your upcoming course too, but just a little glimpse of that here. How does this connect with the notion of your magnum opus, your great work in
Oh, the
life?
Magnus Opus. Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so we missed out the Gnostics, but I'll anyway. But anyway, they came later, based on Plato and the Hermetics. Same, but different. We come from a divine spark. We incarnate. Our Gnosticism is about knowledge, so we need to, through our sort of physical knowledge, then we can remember where we've come from. But we don't, so we keep on coming back. So yes, the magnum opus. This is my pet thing, astrology and alchemy. So we all have to grow, to transform, to understand who we truly are. We have to release the fears and anything, the illusions. I think that's so important, that keep us trapped in this false world, this false belief. We have to address our ego. So that's the Magnus Opus, is to deeply connect, to walk the fire. And I say that often to clients who are going through really difficult times. And I say, you're just walking the fire. You have to do this purification to release what isn't working for you, to really understand, who am I? I'm not this label. I'm not a mother. I'm not I don't know, a CEO of a company or an astrologer. I'm not that. I am utterly me. But we have this massive journey of transformation, and it's an ongoing experience, and it's layers and layers and layers. So you might go through a 29, when you go through a Saturn return, that could turn into a Magnus Opus. That could be really challenging and difficult. Certainly was for me. But then, you get your 40, the midlife crisis at 40, and lots of people are suddenly wake up and just go, well, who am I? I'm a 40-year-old person. I still don't know. Then, you go into your 50s. The Chiron return is at 50. That marks the time for a woman, for menopause, and that's hugely challenging for a woman. Again, that can trigger the Magnus Opus. Who am I? And to understand ourselves, we've got to walk that fire. We have to burn the dross out. We just have to. And it's really challenging, and it's really painful. But that's what keeps us on our toes, and it keeps us engaged with life. And I think every time we meet ourselves and we meet the fear, then we can go beyond that, and we can actually begin to, that light shines more brilliantly, and we start to feel joy, and kind of fear doesn't matter anymore. It's kind of like, oh, well, whatever.
I love that. Well, there's one more area that we said we would cover a bit of today, which is Felicity Warner's study on the role of four elements at the end of life and how they connect to Hermetic teachings. And so I know there's a lot of threads we're pulling together, but this would be a great moment to reflect on how, in this moment when we transition home, so many of these different threads you've been discussing come together.
Yeah. Well, this is my passion about why I do this work and why I want to run the course. I think and Felicity and I are really old friends and we talk a lot together. We love talking about death and dying. It's our favorite subject. And I had a conversation with her not so long ago about the cycles of life and death. And she she's done this research and she's noticed that the dying go through a process of releasing the four elements. Now, we've been talking about them very, very broadly in the Hermetic teachings as death nears. And she describes it like this sort of, first of all, they start to release the earth element. There's this kind of slowing down, and the sort of the languages I can't be bothered. And I know that for myself from working with people who've been dying. And then there's a water element, and it's kind of, this is a time where maybe deep healing is needed, or a reaching out, or feeling that they want to resolve unresolved things. And then there's the fire element, and Felicity describes this part of the dying as this active dying period. There's kind of this burning off the dross. It's a very quick energy, prophetic dreams. It can be quite a lot of anger associated with it. And then she says it shifts to air, and air is the breath. And of course, if you think back to when we incarnate, the moment that we incarnate, we take our first breath. And of course, the moment that we enter into the cross of spirit, which is when when we die, that is, we release ourselves through our breath. I'm just completely blown away by all of this because it completely mirrors the hermetic journey of the soul. So I just feel like there's something going on here that I really want to explore, and that this means that dying is an alchemical process. It is not just an event. And it's a process of transformation and transmutation. And I think the purifying of each element as it moves through the veil. And I often imagine when I think about myself dying, which I do a lot, I feel like I want to be accompanied by Mercury, who's the psychopomp, and he's going to take me through the veil and help me release these four elementals. So if this is so, which I really hope it is, it means that the dying is this alchemical process, and that would radically change our relationship with death and dying.
Mm. Alchemy is at the heart of the spiritual path when we can transmute the old patterns and capacities and densities into something new and beautiful. So, what a
And then
beautiful way to close.
and die consciously.
And
And
die
when we die
consciously.
consciously, we do have a chance of going home.
Well, Sue, you're just a delightfully wide-ranging thinker and creator, and so I'm really, it's been fascinating this whole time together today, and I know there's so much more that you want to share. So let's talk about your upcoming course and all that you're going to be bringing forward for folks who are curious to learn more. So the course is called The Astrology of Life and Death, Reclaiming Ancient Cosmic Wisdom for Living Soulfully in a Death-Averse World. And you can find it at the URL astrologyoflifeanddeath.com, astrologyoflifeanddeath.com. It's a 7-week program. You don't have to be an astrologer. It's really just understanding this deeper language of transformation, the alchemy, and all the qualities of being that we're working with. And you can then enter this deeper portal of understanding your own death, the larger cycles of life. And Sue, I'll let you share more about some of the key themes that you're going to be working with and some of the benefits that people will experience.
Okay, so the first session is a little bit history heavy, so you'll have to bear with me on that one. But that's really exploring why we've lost connection with the great cycle of life and death. So that's looking back at history, it's looking back at how the church repression, and it's looking back at the age of enlightenment that kind of separated astrology from astronomy, and then looking at the new science which is coming out, which is so exciting because, you know, the James Webb telescope is really looking at the fact that we do live in this conscious universe. So that's very much the first journey, the first session. And then the second session is looking at the whole journey of what reincarnation means. And it's also looking at the whole concept of incarnation and then the concept of reincarnation, which I find really exciting. And then I've also got in there how you can recognize reincarnation themes in your chart. That's fun. Hang on, where are I? Third is looking at the whole concept of soul. What is soul? What it isn't? And again, looking at how soul shines its light in your chart through the planet, through all the planets, and how they show up as soul. Then we got to number 4, haven't we?
Yes.
Number 4. Oh, I know. The cycles of life. The cycles of life. Yes. I'm looking at how so the cycles of life and the human condition. So I'm looking a lot at for example, the generic cycles like Saturn returns, like the Chiron return, Jupiter cycles. There's a lot more involved in that, but explaining how the cycles work and how cycles are in cycles and recycles, and that's what astrology is all about. And then we're going to the 5th now, aren't we? The 5th is astrology and alchemy. Favorite subject ever. We've just talked a little bit about it, so I'm not going to go into that. And then in the 6th program, we're going to be looking at astrology and the whole dying process. And I'm going to be bringing in some absolutely mind-blowing research that's being done on people's dying brains and about, does consciousness continue after death? So that's all I'm going to say about that one.
Super
And the
exciting.
7th, we're going to bring it all together and just look at how our mortality, how our experience of life can guide us through to live much more consciously.
What an amazing program, and you're drawing so many threads together in a way that I have not seen before. So understanding the astrological, the hermetic, how it works with alchemy, understanding the dying process and how it works into this it's really a unique combination of things that really all puts us into right relationship with life and death.
Yeah, that's
So
what the aim of the program is, let's, put ourselves back in right relationship with death and dying.
So again, there's more detail at astrologyoflifeanddeath.com, astrologyoflifeanddeath.com. So Sue has just described the 7 90-minute live sessions, each of which is going to have a lot of different dimensions to them and practices you can do. And you'll get recordings of every session, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts that are great to work with, study, and highlight. There's weekly practices for home and for deeper inquiry. There's a community to support you and deepen your experience, as well as small group time to connect with other participants. On the page, you'll also see a number of extra bonuses that have each been chosen to really enhance your journey. There's a full PDF workbook called Your Astrology Workbook, a beginner's guide. Sue, you want to share more about that one?
Yeah, I created that for anyone who doesn't know about astrology. It's a basic, really basic guide. It's about 44 pages long. So there's a lot of information in there. So you should get a really basic understanding of astrology so you won't get lost.
Great. And then there's a PDF chapter of Sue's book, The Psychology of Dying Consciously, called Living Fully, Dying Consciously, The Path to Spiritual Well-Being. Want to share any more about that bonus?
That one, yes, that I wrote this book in 2020 called Living Fully, Dying Consciously. And so this is the chapter is about the impact of trauma. So how to just be aware, become trauma aware, because that can stop your growth. And it's about just understanding the brain and what it does. So I'm stroking my cat right now. She's off camera, but she's here.
That's great. Then there's one final bonus. This is our special bonus you get if you sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. This is actually a dialogue with Sue and Michelle Shane. It's called Soul Resilience for Challenging Times. You want to share more about that special bonus they get today?
Yeah, well, this is a conversation that I have. She's a dear friend, and we work together a lot on YouTube. Just talking about our experience of how we've dealt with crisis and trauma. Michelle actually was going through a really difficult time, is going through a difficult time, and she was very willing to share her resilience, how she's developing resilience, and it's very moving.
Beautiful. Well, that's a great extra reason to sign up today. So it's clearly going to be such a fascinating program and so many potential benefits for you and your soul development. We've kept the investment very accessible, just three payments of $128, or you can save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start September 30th and run Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, and that works obviously for the UK and Europe as well. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. There's some beautiful testimonials, including from Shift faculty member Felicity Warner. Sue's astrology insights are incredibly accurate and transformative, offering profound personal revelations. And Jillian Crawford, I warmly recommend Sue as an expert in the fields of both astrology and mortality. Really unique combination here. So great testimonials of Sue's depth of knowledge and the impact of her work on people's lives. So you can see all that again at astrologyoflifeanddeath.com. So again, the whole program is called The Astrology of Life and Death, Reclaiming Ancient Cosmic Wisdom for Living Soulfully in a Death-Averse World. And the URL is astrologyoflifeanddeath.com, and you'll get that special bonus with Sue and Michelle Shane on soul resilience for challenging times if you sign up by midnight tonight. So, Sue, we're nearing the end of our time. You're really a fascinating, deep thinker, explorer of the universe and soul. So, thank you for your wisdom and your insights here today. Anything that you want to share with folks who are considering doing your full course?
No, I just my my hope for everyone really is it releases fear of, well, it does probably won't release every fear of death, but it kind of eases the fear of death. I think that's what it is for me, and just to open up to a different way of looking at death and the whole dying process, because we don't do it well in our Western culture. That is for sure, not at the moment.
Hmm. Beautiful. Well, Sue, thank you so much. And thank you all for joining. And look forward to seeing many of you in Sue's upcoming course. And again, it's at astrologyoflifeanddeath.com. And you'll get that special bonus when you sign up by midnight, which is all about the soul resilience for challenging times. So many blessings and thank you very much.